From a shy young child unable to walk to one of the most deadly finishers in the UFC, Charles Oliveira, aka Du Bronze, has certainly come a long way in his life. Ranked number 1 in the UFC Lightweight rankings and number 3 in the UFC Men's Pound-for-Pound rankings, Charles Oliveira da Silva is without a doubt one of the top competitors to ever grace the UFC. Watch the video till the end as we tell you about the inspiring story behind Charles Oliveira's amazing career. Born on October 17, 1989, Brazilian mixed martial artist and Brazilian Jiu Jitsu expert Charles Oliveira da Silva was born into a low-income family in the Vicente de Carvalho favela in Guarujá, a popular tourist destination in São Paulo, Brazil. From an early age, Charles started playing football and had dreams of being a professional player. However, when he was 7 years old, Charles started experiencing regular physical aches, had trouble walking, and at times was unable to move his legs. His ankles were severely afflicted by rheumatic fever, and the doctor warned his family that he would go paraplegic and would never walk again. Although the treatment for his disease was available, it was very costly, and Charles' family was unable to afford it as his father worked as a school janitor and sometimes sold eggs at the neighborhood farmer's market. In times of great need, his father's boss provided them with much-needed financial assistance, which greatly helped them afford the price of such treatment. Charles Oliveira then spent 2 years in the hospital. It is often said that it was the most difficult period of his life as he was completely bedridden and alone, since his parents were always working. After spending 2 years in the hospital, doctors informed Oliveira's mother that even though he is now better, the chances of him participating in any kind of sports are very low. At that time, Charles was a huge soccer fan and had no concept of what combat sports were. However, his parents insisted on enrolling him in sports programs despite the difficulties and the sicknesses, and after 2 years he began to make a recovery. When Oliveira was 12 years old, his next-door neighbor Paulo introduced him to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. Despite his family's extremely limited means, the BJJ gym's instructor provided courses without charge as part of a charitable initiative. His family then helped him by making some extra money from selling street food, among other things. Unfortunately for him, when he turned 14, Paulo, the man who introduced him to Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, was killed after getting caught in the crossfire of a shooting in Vicente de Carvalho. After that, Charles Oliveira started learning Brazilian Jiu Jitsu under Roger Coelho, and in 2003, he won his first significant championship as a white belt. After continuing his hard work in the following years, Oliveira started his career in Brazil in 2007, amassing a 12-0 record with 6 knockouts and 5 submissions. Oliveira then made his professional debut in March 2008 at the Predator Fight Championship event, where his master Jorge Patino had previously competed at Predator FC 6. This was a one-night single elimination tournament modeled after Pride FC's Grand Prix events. The Predator FC 9 required competitors to fight 3 times in one night before the winner was declared. Charles was up for the challenge and successfully overcame Jackson Ponce in the opening round. Oliveira then faced Viscardi and Rade in the second round, and advanced to the tournament's championship round by winning the match via TKO. Then came the all-important final in which Oliveira successfully defeated Diego Braga in the opening round of the fight by knockout to claim the championship. Over the course of the following several months, Oliveira submitted 3 opponents in a row, including Bellator veteran Alexander Bezerra, and defeated Eduardo Pachu by split decision. As a result of his consistent victories and fame, Oliveira was ranked as the 3rd best Brazilian prospect to watch in January 2010. Not only that, he also received his Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt from Erickson Cardoso and Jorge Patino in 2010. Now, it was time for him to up the ante, and he did so in some style, as in his debut mixed martial arts fight. Oliveira defeated Rui Mikado in the National Amateur Vale Tudo circuit, and he did so in 15 seconds into the first round by submitting Mikado with an armbar. This was one of the fastest ever results in the history of the sport. With this amazing win, he was instantly in the spotlight and received the nickname Du Bronze, which referred to the New York City borough of the same name, that literally meant from the Bronx, as Bronx was slang for favelas and impoverished areas. However, Charles was proud of his background and accepted his new nickname. After getting famous all around the globe, Oliveira finally joined the UFC and faced Darren Elkins in his first fight. Everyone was excited. However, due to visa complications, this fight was moved from The Ultimate Fighter, Team Liddell vs. Team Ortiz finale to UFC Live, Jones vs. Matyashenko. But the outcome was as expected, as after 41 seconds of the first round, Oliveira submitted Elkins to win the fight. Even though Elkins knocked Oliveira to the ground in the start, Charles quickly attempted a triangle choke before switching to an armbar, which eventually forced Elkins to tap. This result also helped him win the submission of the night prize. Oliveira then competed against Efrain Escudero at UFC Fight Night 22, whom he defeated with a standing rear naked choke in the third round. With this win by submission, Oliveira again received the Submission of the Night award for his second consecutive UFC appearance. Then came the reality check of Charles Oliveira's career, when he competed against Jim Miller at UFC 124 on December 11, 2010, and suffered his first career defeat as he was immediately submitted by knee bar in the first round. This defeat, however, did not impact him a lot, as in his next fight, he beat Eric Wisely in a featherweight contest by applying a reverse calf slicer submission, which was used for the first time in a UFC fight. In the next years, Oliveira won against many tough opponents, such as Jonathan Brookins, whom he defeated in the Ultimate Fighter 15 finale. This was followed by his first weigh-in miss when he was scheduled to square off on September 5, 2014, at UFC Fight Night 50 against Nick Lentz. Oliveira weighed 150 pounds rather than the 146 pounds allowed for the featherweight division. As a result, the fight was then converted to a catchweight contest, and it was decided that Charles would give his opponent Nick Lentz 20% of his purse. However, the fight never happened, as Oliveira was completely removed from the competition the day before the fight after he became ill as a result of the weight cut process. 9 months later, on May 30, 2015, Oliveira finally fought Nick Lentz in a rematch at UFC Fight Night 67 and won the fight in the third round by submission with a guillotine choke after a back-and-forth opening for 2 rounds. This was Oliveira's third fight of the night bonus and third performance of the night bonus. This win was followed by a loss against Anthony Pettis at UFC on Fox 21 on August 27, 2016, who successfully submitted Oliveira after a hard back-and-forth contest. After defeating Lentz in 2015, Charles hit a rough patch as he went on to lose 4 of his next 6 fights. These losses prompted Charles Oliveira to work even harder on his style and fitness. His hard work paid off when on March 14, 2020, Oliveira and Lee squared off in the main event of UFC Fight Night 170. The result was in his favor, as Oliveira submitted his opponent to end the match with a guillotine choke in the third round. With this victory, Oliveira not only tied the Cowboy for the most finishes in UFC history, but he also moved up to second place in terms of bonuses received with 16 wins. Rising through the ranks, Oliveira fought Tony Ferguson in the co-main event of UFC 256 on December 12, 2020. Ferguson was caught in an armbar by Charles in the opening round, but despite intense pressure, Ferguson refused to submit and nearly had Oliveira break his arm before being saved at the end of the round. Charles Oliveira then dominated the contest for 3 rounds before prevailing by unanimous decision, making this his first decision victory since his fight with Jeremy Stephens in 2014. Thanks to this win, he also received his 11th Performance of the Night award. Now was the time for him to be the big dog in the whole roster, as following the retirement of the previous champion, Khabib Nurmagomedov, Oliveira competed for the vacant UFC Lightweight Championship on May 15, 2021 against Michael Chandler, a former 3-time Bellator Lightweight Champion. Despite being brutally hit by Chandler in the first round, Oliveira won the fight via TKO early in the second round to win the UFC Lightweight Championship, while also setting a new record for the most finishes in UFC history, with the knockout victory. Then came his first title defense at UFC 269 on December 11th of 2021, as Charles faced Dustin Poirier, the former UFC interim lightweight champion. The fight went on for 3 rounds, and in the first minute of the third round, Oliveira submitted Poirier with a standing rear naked choke to win the fight. Oliveira was then scheduled to defend his championship against Justin Gaethje on May 7th of 2022 at UFC 274. However, the ghost of his weight and challenge early on in his career came to haunt him back as Oliveira came in at the weigh-ins at 155.15 pounds, which is 0.5 pounds over the lightweight title limit. As a result, Oliveira was formally stripped of the title even before the bout began. This was the first time in UFC history that a title was revoked because of a weight infraction. This was a very controversial decision, as other competitors on the UFC 274 card claimed there were problems with the scales, making the decision to rob Oliveira of the championship very contentious. When the fight finally happened, Oliveira successfully used a rear naked choke in the first round of the fight to submit Justin Gaethje.
O campeão tem nome, se chama Charles do Bronx. Pode bater, bate, filha. Homem aqui aguenta, rapaz. Nós é iluminado, rapaz. Tá faltando alguma coisa aqui. Cadê meu cinturão?
5 months after the Justin Gaethje fight, Bronze would have to face his biggest challenge to date, Khabib's pupil, Islam Makhachev, in Abu Dhabi at UFC 280, an event that ended up having one of the most stacked fight cards in the history of the sport. Coming off of an 11-fight win streak, Charles Oliveira was surprisingly the underdog leading up to this fight. A lot of people were shocked. Even fighters like Paddy Pimblett and veterans of the sport like Chael Sonnen couldn't wrap their heads around the fact that the odds makers had Makhachev as the favorite. But we guess Oliveira has never had it easy. Saturday night arrives, and it's time to fight for the belt. Makhachev won every area of the fight from the opening bell, landing good shots on the feet and scoring an early takedown. Bronze threatened with a few submission attempts, but did not manage to lock anything in due to Makhachev's superior control. Makhachev also landed a few punches in the opening frame that seemed to rock Oliveira. The same thing would happen in the second round, but this time Makhachev did not allow Oliveira to survive. After a right hand sent Oliveira to the canvas, the greatest finisher in the history of the UFC got finished, as he quickly got locked in an arm triangle choke that forced him to tap out at the 3:16 mark of round 2. Charles, unable to recover his belt, recorded his 9th defeat at UFC 280 and now looks ahead to the future, likely needing a victory potentially against Beneil Dariush to re-enter the title conversation. This is undoubtedly not the end for Charles "Bronze" Oliveira. That is it from today's video. We hope you enjoyed the content of the video. If you did, show some love and hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you never miss out on any of the amazing videos we have in store for you.